I am so excited to finally talk about this melee. The Fortsville Slug. Just kidding, Acorn. We're talking about the Vacuum Tube Sword. This thing is one of those weapons that, oh, how do I even get into it? It is not a top tier melee. All right, I'll tell you that right now. But that is kind of old news because of the new 6 perk, as you probably won't be surprised to hear, because it is a pretty okay sword, okay? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not great on its own, but with Paleoluna, as per usual, she makes pretty much everything with a high swing speed usable. Now, you don't need Paleoluna to make this thing good. However, the way that we're going to perk it today, we'll talk about that later. But with the new 6 perk, when you eliminate an enemy, as you've seen, it chains to other enemies. And I want to provide a little bit of a disclaimer for the enemies that will be in my video today. I like to showcase these weapons in the highest end zones, and a problem with the chaining is that it doesn't really scale with the damage output, and it seems to do about the same amount no matter where you are. So if you're in a lower zone, the chain lightning will be a lot more effective at eliminating more enemies consistently, and in the video you'll be seeing today, a lot of these enemies don't really die from that extra chain damage, so it won't look like it's doing a ton, but I'd like you to take special note of the fact that a lot of these enemies will definitely be weaker when I switch to them in the pack, and even with the nurse zombies, they're not doing nearly as much as they normally do, you know, because they're healing everything around you. It usually just obliterates any chance of a melee doing anything useful here, but because of that chain lightning damage just chipping away at every enemy all at once, or at least up to 6 of them all at once, it's actually really effective, and it makes this weapon super usable, and I'm so happy. That's a lot of raving for one weapon, but I can't overstate just how much fun I've been having with this sword. I finally got a copy for myself, and here we are making a video on it. Now, I have been offered copies of this weapon a ton. Thank you to every single person who's reached out in the comments or on Discord or in stream offering me a copy of this weapon. I do appreciate it, but when it comes to this game, everybody just, you want to have your own copy, right? And with the Vacuum Tube Sword, much like the Vacuum Tube Launcher, you can even go to the collection book right down here to the expansion schematics, go to the Vacuum Tube Weapons section, and you can recruit a copy for yourself. I won't demonstrate this like I did in the Vacuum Tube Launcher video, but suffice it to say, just research an epic version of this and then go to evolve it, check that 6 perk and see if it'll have anything useful, much like this Maverick that I've set aside. It has that new Stunning or Knocking Back 6 perk. I'm considering trying it. I don't know, I've set it aside, but I can already see the 6 perk before I even change it. Kind of a cool trick and a good way to save your legendary flux. Getting back to the Vacuum Tube Sword though, there's really not much to add. That extra chain lightning is extremely useful, but how you want to perk it is really important. So I ran double attack speed. This probably won't surprise anybody, as we recently found that double attack speed, or even triple attack speed if possible with Paleoluna, is the highest damage output. And like most swords, this is why I mentioned you're kind of going to want Luna regardless. You can't really run crit rate and crit damage on this thing and maintain an attack speed perk, which means you're going to have a bit of a trade-off. I truly do not recommend a crit build over double attack speed, even if you're not using Paleoluna. Double attack speed is probably going to be extra effective. I haven't ran the numbers on that. If you're not using Paleoluna, perhaps attack speed double damage might be the best way to go, but I can't really see a way to use this weapon without using Paleoluna. And there is good news for everybody watching this video. Upon release, Paleoluna, if I'm not mistaken, is right there in the shop. This will be true up until about September 8th. That's the current date that's been sort of not really announced, but it's been announced. You know how Magus likes to talk to people on Reddit. Very helpful. I'm glad that he does that, but, maybe September 8th is a figure that should, be here somewhere. I don't know. Just an idea. But regardless, what that means is you'll be able to buy Paleoluna shortly after this video is uploaded if you're watching from the future. I apologize if you don't have Paleoluna. I don't really know a great way to use this weapon other than, as I already mentioned, double damage attack speed is actually probably a pretty good way to go. You're definitely going to want an attack speed on this weapon. But of course, all you got to do is eliminate an enemy before it chains to every other enemy, and that makes it just a great crowd clearing weapon. Now, you do have other 6 perk options, and I can't really sign off on any of them. Obviously, if you have Affliction or Slowed and Snared, you can match the 6 perk to damage to Afflicted or Slowed and Snared. That's great extra damage, but without that group damage from the Chain Lightning, this weapon is no longer special and not really something that would make its way into my hands personally. I only like to use weapons that are fun and really effective, or both. That would be great, obviously, to have both, and this one seems to fit the bill. And the damage to water enemies is also kind of nice. That's the only one, just like the Vacuum Tube Launcher, that I would maybe consider using instead of the Chain Lightning, because that 44% extra damage isn't literally 40% because of the way the damage stacks in this game, but for the sake of argument, the 44% extra damage is nice. It's a lot of extra damage. I can't showcase this as I don't have a copy, but regardless, things would be dying a whole heck of a lot faster. So fast that you might not need that Chain Lightning. I like the idea of hitting the front of an enemy at a you know, a chain of zombies and then just watching them all get hit by that lightning, that is incredibly satisfying to me personally. But I think that 44% damage could compete fairly well. But one of you might be saying, Beast, that you have a 45% damage to afflict and slow there as well. What about that? Well, that only takes place after the first hit, and so you're going to have to hit every single enemy at least once before you even get that effect. And you're going to have to hit them like 2 or 3 times more before you're actually averaging to the amount of extra damage that you would have been getting in the first place with the damage to water enemies. Of course, everything I've just said there only applies to water enemies, as it only affects water enemies, and so there is a little bit of trade-off in every single direction. That's why I think the chain lightning might just be the best all around, because it's going to chain to any enemy regardless of its element, and it's going to help you no matter what. As for the 5th perk, you can see we went damage to mist monsters and bosses here. I think that's your best bet. Obviously, the chain lightning is going to clean up all of the baby zombies. They're going to die immediately. All the normal zombies are going to go pretty quick. The husky husks are going to take a little bit more attention, but the mist monsters are what's really not going to care about your chain lightning. They're the ones that you are going to need the most help on, and I can't really see a better perk for this spot, seeing as you're not really going to be stunning, staggering, or freezing targets all that much. It's not like the vacuum tube launcher where you have that stunning effect. If I'm not mistaken, it doesn't say it in here, you're not going to be stunning any enemies with the sword, so I think the damage to mist monsters and bosses is not only our best option, seeing as none of the others really help us, but it's also a pretty good one, because every time I went up to a mist monster, I was like, aha! Every time I went up to a mist monster, I was pretty excited, seeing like, hey, I got a perk for this. This is going to be a little bit easier than before. And then, of course, the damage perk in the middle is, again, just kind of our only option. I mean, armor, durability, life leech, movement speed. You can pick if any of this is something that fits your playstyle more. Maybe you're somebody who's spamming the heavy attack, which I didn't find to be all that special. I mean, of course, the heavy attack does more damage, but it's not really needed. And it locks you into an animation that perhaps would be faster to just swing it normally. I wasn't wildly impressed. I'm definitely going to recommend a damage perk here, and I'll probably leave it the same. I do want to reiterate at the end here that double attack speed is really only recommended if you're using Paleo Luna, as she is what is providing a lot of your regular damage. So, of course, if you're not using Paleo Luna, then, of course, double damage and attack speed would probably be a pretty good way to go. That's the vacuum tube sword, you guys. Really excited about this weapon. It's one of those weapons where I just spent all this time talking about perks, but perks are the least interesting thing. I perk it like this, didn't think twice, threw on a Luna loadout, and that was awesome. I will go over some of the heroes that I used in this loadout. I showed it on screen already, but Assassin Sarah is what I recommend, and of course, Legendary Blade is just nice. Not everybody might have the Mythic, but some extra sword damage is always nice to have. I'll link my old Best Ninja loadout video down below. It is missing some of the newer heroes in the game, but regardless, if you follow what I talk about in that video, you are going to wind up with an amazing loadout. None of the heroes in that video got any worse. It's just that some other newer options have come out, like Monster Smash, for example, but even getting some life leech from your attacks is not really that big of a deal, and I don't personally use it all that much regardless. And a lot of people bring up the fact that Paleo Luna went from a 16.5% bonus down to a 9%. It really wasn't a nerf, as they buffed ability damage from heroes in the exact same update, and Blast from the Past gave you a little bit more health, if I'm not mistaken. So Luna either broke even or didn't really get all that much worse, or she got better. Nobody really did the math, frankly, but I haven't noticed a difference, and she still kicks ass. So there you go. Those are the perks of the vacuum tube sword and the loadout that I used. If you guys want to support the channel, feel free to use code Mista to check out. I'd really appreciate it. If you guys want to become a channel member, you can see all the perks right here. I do stream on Twitch more so nowadays, so I'll have that link down below if you guys want to catch a live stream. Obviously, becoming a channel member does have better perks if I'm streaming on YouTube, but you do still get some nice perks like the member badge in the comments, and hopefully someday they'll allow you to use the channel emotes in the comment section as well, which would be pretty cool. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a nice day. And then